Well, that's what it looked like last night, if you're with us on video anyway, as Jordan Westburg walked it off in the bottom of the ninth inning. Orioles get a dramatic 6-4 win over the Kansas City Royals to open up that 3-game set. I was about to ask Griffin about whether or not it was going to be raining tonight, and then I was afraid that I was going to get like a gaslit answer where he was going to tell me, well, I'm looking out the window right now.
Right now it doesn't look good.
Thank you, Griffin.
If they're playing right now.
Dynamite observation. We think they're going to attempt to continue the series tonight, but I don't know because I haven't personally looked at the weather report. So maybe I should get into that. Maybe that should be a plan that I should start. I guess we're just doing this for all of April. I guess this is just going to be our reality.
Does not look as good as doesn't look like it's going to clear up. It's going to be about 60% at 6 o'clock, 72 at 7 p.m.,
no, that
80%.
That doesn't seem great. It doesn't feel like there's much of a window.
Yeah, it does not.
That's
what that old radar says.
Well, hope for the best, I guess is all we can say here. I don't know what to tell you. Hopefully, the Orioles can continue their series against the Royals tonight. Alec Marsh and Cola Irvin, the scheduled pitching matchup. If not, what does the weather look like tomorrow?
Oh, that's not good. I see a lightning bolt tomorrow.
Oh, good. Oh, good. So they might have to move the scheduled 1 o'clock game back. This is going well.
Yeah, and that is exactly when the lightning bolt shows up in the hourly, right at 1 p.m. tomorrow.
And when do the
also a 95% chance.
And when do the Orioles and Royals play again this season? Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah. I don't think they would want to make it up in Kansas City.
Oh, okay.
What do you got?
19th of this month.
What?
Yeah.
That's in Kansas City.
Yeah.
No, Griffin, if
they
you
don't
have to
play here in Baltimore yet.
ever at all the rest of the season, this is the only time?
Yeah.
Okay, well then they're going to have to do everything in their power to try to play these games.
I assume because the Orioles don't play Thursday. I want to say Kansas City probably doesn't play Thursday because they're only like 16.
Well, but some of them are teams that have opening day.
Kansas City does play on Thursday.
Is that their opening day?
No, because they were home this week.
They were home of the weekend? Okay.
Yeah.
Is somebody else's opening day then?
No, they're home. So.
Huh. Weird.
It is weird.
Weird. Well, that makes Thursday not an option. Could be a real problem for trying to play these. This really is the only time the Royals are coming to Baltimore?
Yeah, I mean, that's how it
I thought you played everybody.
No.
I thought the unbalanced. All right, whatever. I don't know what I'm talking about.
National League teams will play once, period.
Right.
And then the rest of the American League, they do a home and home. Like, not a home and home, but you know what I mean. Like, they play
is that right?
a split series.
All right. I believe you. No, not as I should. I just choose to.
So the Orioles are off on the 18th as well, which is the day before that Royals series. Let's see if the Royals play.
Yikes.
The Royals do not play on that Thursday, so maybe they.
Yeah, I mean that would be. But if they have to make up 2 games, I guess they could just try to play
series.
a double. No, they could just try to play a double header that day. It would be the answer. But I don't know. My gut tells me that if there are thunderstorms in the forecast tomorrow, that they try to push to play this game somehow tonight. But yeah, you're right. It don't look good. I'm looking at the same forecast that you're looking at, and it does not look good. Oh well, they won last night. That's what matters. All right, it is Glenn Clark right here. Oh boy, I got to tell you a story about how I consumed soap this morning. That was pleasant.
Why'd you do that?
I'm still my wife woke me up at like 4 a.m. or whatever stupid time it was, and said, "I'm putting this bottle next to the bed." And I was like, "What?" She was like, "Listen, your younger son made this. It's an April Fool's joke. It's water and green food coloring."
Well, here's the thing.
And I said,
"Today's not April Fool's Day."
I wasn't home yesterday.
Oh, okay.
So she said, "It was supposed to be an April Fool's Day joke yesterday. You know, I was supposed to give it to you when you got home last night. He was in bed. I didn't. It's next to the bed. I'm going to go pour a little bit out so it looked like you drank it." Me being the committed father that I am, I said, "Well, I should at least have a sip." So I have a sip, and I'm like, "Oh, that's vile. What? That's..." I'm just thinking like maybe the food coloring was bad. I don't know.
Sounds like you got it pretty good.
It's also 5 a.m. So I'm like, whatever. Let's put the cat back on the thing, and I go back to bed. 8:30, I wake up, or whatever. No, not 8:30.
Nice.
8. Yeah, I wish. 8 or whatever time it is. And my son walks in, and I said, I tried your thing. You got me. And he was like, you weren't supposed to drink that. I was like, what? He said, it was soap.
So he got you pretty good. I mean, I think maybe this was Mrs. Clark's prank the whole time, actually. She knew that you weren't going to not do the bit.
A lot of miscommunication involved. It's not a good day for your pal.
So what was supposed to happen?
Very little sleep, and I consumed soap, and I'm still tasting it.
What was supposed to happen?
I don't know.
I want to know what was supposed to happen.
I don't know what the bit was supposed to be.
Maybe this is exactly what was supposed to happen.
I think the bit was supposed to be that he was going to like hand me the drink, and I was going to go to drink it, and then he was going to be like, April Fools.
Not let you drink the soap.
I don't know. I have no idea, Griffin.
So it was just a soap canister right next to the bed?
No, it was a water bottle.
Oh, okay. With soap in it.
That had green liquid in it. And apparently it involves soap. Oh, God. I still taste it. I don't feel like doing a show. The Orioles won. The Orioles won 6-4. We'll talk about that. Chelsea Janes is going to join us from the Washington Post. Chelsea was in Baltimore for the start of the season. Also, coming up this morning, we will do our regular Tuesday segment with Patrick Stevens talking the NCAA tournament, as well as some big stories from both lacrosse and more related to Maryland basketball. Juju Reese's return, Jamie Kaiser Jr.'s departure, the arrival of Jacoby Gillespie. We'll talk about all of those things. And then some fella perhaps you've heard of named Cal Ripken. Cal Ripken will join us this morning. He is now part of the ownership team for the Baltimore Orioles. We will discuss that with this Cal Ripken guy. So all of that coming up on the program today. Today's show is brought to you by Atman's Harbor Point, which is just the best place. I think that's scientifically the way that I'm supposed to describe it. The best place. Everything you love about Atman's. The hand-rolled bagels. The corned beef piled high. The delicious soups. The desserts. All of the deli sandwiches perfect. The pickle bar. And now add in, they also have a full-service bar where you can hang out and watch games. If you are headed downtown tonight, but you're not sure if the game is actually going to be played and you want to wait until you definitely know that the Tarp is off the field, I would stop by Atman's Harbor Point until you're confident. Because if for some reason the game gets canceled, then you could just continue to hang out at Atman's Harbor Point. It seems like what we'd call a win-win. AtmansDeli.com is the website to find the daily specials at Atman's Harbor Point. All right, so from last night, guess let's go ahead and do this. Orioles win.
Yes.
This one is actually awkward for me because I really think that it should be Ryan Mountcastle. The Orioles go down 3-0. Ryan Mountcastle gets the big home run to get him back level, and then he makes that phenomenal play at first base, laying out and then laying out again to dive for the bag. And then we can quibble about whether or not it should have been a hit. I'm okay with it being called a hit, the go-ahead RBI, because it was awfully close. He might have beaten it out anyway, right? It was a really well-hit ball. He might it was very difficult for me to tell on the replay if it was definitive that he wasn't going to beat it out. Maybe he wasn't, but it was awfully close. So I'm okay with them rewarding him with a hit in that situation. So the totality of that made me want to, and again, assuming that the game was going to end 4-3, it was going to be a slam dunk that Ryan Mountcastle was going to be the man of the match. It's just that it's awfully hard to have someone hit a walk-off home run in extra innings and not make them the man of the match. So begrudgingly, love you, Jordan Westburg, and that was a hell of a moment. I just didn't feel like dealing with what are you talking about? It's Jordan Westburg.
Interestingly, the MLB, because MLB now does a player of the game little thing. So is that tape
supposed to be some official in some way?
No. But there's a fan vote and an MLB vote. I'm not sure how they decide, but the fan vote was actually
tape is problematic.
Ryan Mountcastle.
The tape is problematic over here. We gotta stick to the Scotch tape.
Okay.
Or we gotta get the push pins.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Do we have push pins?
I can check later. Well, here, give me. Well, don't put it back up.
Well, what do you mean to do?
Well, I could retape it before you re-add it.
There you go. Go ahead, retape picture of Grayson Rodriguez there. This is very scientific what we're doing over here. People need to know.
Which is why I don't understand your frustration with me.
I feel like we should be adding pictures online.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Sort of the way that we did with the Lamar meter. So there you go. There's Jordan Westburg, the man of the match.
Neither was talking in mics.
What's that?
Neither was talking in the mics.
I'm talking in the mic. What are you talking about? The mic's right there. What are we doing here? I didn't have my headphones on. I'll put those back on. Yeah, Jordan Westburg's man of the match because he hit a walk-off home run in extra innings, and it's really hard. The takeaways from last night, I guess let's start with the Craig Kimbrell thing because it's the low-hanging fruit, right? I think it's fair to say two different things about it. I think the first fair thing to say is it's really hard to fault Craig Kimbrell for his effort when what he gave up was a bloop single and the fastest dude alive racing around the base paths. At the same time, like, our opinions are based on a totality of information. And we have had every right to be concerned about Craig Kimbrell. We all saw the same guy in the playoffs a year ago. We all know he's not. The standard was what Felix Bautista had done. And the likelihood of that being repeated was Felix Bautista had entered into a level of special that next to no one is capable of matching. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with our concerns existing about Craig Kimbrell. Is it fair to pile on him about last night? Or in reality, is that something that could happen to anybody? I would argue that it's the latter. I don't think the story of if the Orioles had lost the game would have been Craig Kimbrell blew it. But I still have concerns about Craig Kimbrell, and I'm still worried about it, and this goes back to what we were talking about with Dylan Tate the other day, although Dylan Tate actually got really hit. He didn't give up a bloop single and have the fastest guy alive race around the bases. But when the spotlight is shining brighter on you because it's an area of concern, then reasonably, if you blow a save in your first appearance, the reaction is going to be significant. Our biggest area of concern with the baseball team is the back end of the bullpen. And when that's the case, and the back end of the bullpen falters, it's going to play to the previously held notions. It's confirmation bias, if you will. We think we should be worried about the back end of the bullpen, and we're worried about the back end of the bullpen. I do think it is fair to say that's not really... You can't really put this on Craig Kimbrell. It's more bad luck than it is, boy, this guy just might not have it at all anymore. In fact, the fact that he struck out a couple of dudes that inning, probably a pretty positive sign about what he has. So I get it. I get why the reaction was what it was. And on the whole, I think it's fair to be concerned about the totality of the back end of the bullpen. I don't think it's fair to say that last night they blew it as much as they were the victims of some fairly bad luck. Give Yennier Cano a lot of credit. Now, to be fair, he kind of got himself into the situation, but boy, did he do a Houdini act in getting himself out of that situation. Yennier Cano, that was phenomenal. I mean, that was incredibly high-level stuff. And again, in trying to address this concern that we have about the back end of the bullpen, I think what you saw from Yennier Cano is wildly encouraging because he's a big part of the solution as well, or whatever the math is going to be to how the back end of the bullpen ends up working out. So if you're bummed about them blowing a save, again, I would say hard to put that all on Craig Kimbrell. The bigger story to me about the bullpen last night was, my God, that was good from Yennier Cano in a situation where it looked fait accompli that he was going to give up the go-ahead run. Tremendous.
So how much of, I mean, yes, the ninth inning was bad luck towards Kimbrell, but how much should we put any stock into the fact that these relievers are letting teams kind of run rampant on the bases?
So I think that's a problem that has existed. First of all, the Royals are going to run.
Right, yes.
Like, it is unique to the Royals are going to run. They put a team together that run. I mean, Bobby Witt taking the extra base on a ball that didn't get past, getting a double on a ball that didn't get to the wall, didn't get to the
even near the
warning track. Yeah, I mean, like, this is who they are. So it's a bit difficult for me to judge that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what they end up stealing 4 bases last night, something like that.
2 off of Cano, 2 off of Kimbrell.
Yeah,
of course they were the fastest guys ever, but like.
Blanco in particular, that's insane. Like, we all know how fast Bobby Witt is, and then you see it again, you're like, Jesus Christ, how is this guy? You don't want to be the one to say it. You're like, he's white. How is he this fast? Like, how is this possible? I don't know. It's been an issue that has existed before this year with Orioles relievers and holding runners on. So, it's also a factor of the new rules too, right? Like, you can only
like more and more teams are realizing, like, when we get on base, we need to be able to.
Well, particularly in close games late. Like, it's a situation where we put it on the relievers. It might be that there would be a lot more stolen bases in general, except for, it's not a risk that's worth taking. You know what I mean? It's a risk that's more worth taking late in games because the game's on the line, right? Like, the Orioles put in Jorge Mateo to run for Ryan O'Hearn after he got the base hit late. And I understood it, but there was a part of me that was thinking, like, there's no guarantee that Jorge Mateo is going to score here. This game could go to extra innings. You could be taking Ryan O'Hearn out of your lineup in a game where you might need one swing to win the game. And I don't feel great about the idea that Jorge Mateo is going to be the one that gives it to you. Now, thankfully, they did not. They were able to, I think I said a walk-off winner in extra innings earlier. Why did I say that? Obviously, it was not in extra innings. It was in the bottom of the ninth. I don't know where that came from. I did it apparently yesterday. Did I call I got somebody's name wrong yesterday, too, and somebody told me about it. I don't remember what it was, though. Sorry. Look, man, I'm old.
I feel like I would know.
I don't sleep much.
I try to point out all of it.
We should get it right. I want to get it right. This is not me saying, tell me that I'm wrong, and I'll make sure I fix it. But I promise you it wasn't something where I didn't know the correct answer. It was somewhere where I just had a brain fart and said the wrong thing. Anyway, yes, it was not an extra inning game last night. It was a ninth inning game. I get your point. I don't know that I'm panicked about it. I do think that it's something that baseball has kind of manufactured. Credit to the Royals for the fact that they've said, hey, we're going to build a team that we think is capable of taking advantage of it. We were talking about that with Rex Hudler yesterday. They're going to run. And if you're only able to throw the ball over once, that benefits the teams that can run. It does. It's harder to keep runners on base. You throw over once. Now, they can take a pretty sizable lead. So, I don't know. I don't know that you can do anything about it. These are the rules. You got to get the batters out. I guess is what I would say. You're going to have to get the hitters out because guys like this are going to have a serious advantage on the base paths. The Orioles, there will be opportunity for them to try to take advantage of it as well. And maybe we're thinking about that clearly when they put Jorge Mateo in to run for Ryan O'Hearn last night after he smoked. Boy, that ball got the irony of that, right? Bobby Witt got a double on a ball that didn't get to the wall. Ryan O'Hearn got a ball to the wall and got a single out of it. Baseball's a weird game, man. I'm trying to think there was one other observation that I had from last night, and I've already blanked on what it was. Dean Kramer was fine. He was fine.
The two errors early, like
yeah,
in that
but he didn't give up a run that inning, right?
Like
that's
extended it.
His pitch count. Yeah, that's fair. Like, would he have pitched deeper into the game? Would he have delivered another quality start had it not been for the two errors in the first inning? Maybe, right? Like, but he wasn't great necessarily either. It was just a weird game. I mean, the guy gave up 2 home runs. Yeah, certainly the ball got hit hard. He was good enough. And I think that's okay from the back end of this rotation. I think you can deal with good enough. It really does feel like a swing right now. Like until at least John Means, if not Kyle Bradish, it feels like there's a swing of you got 2 guys you're really counting on, and then kind of a wild card in Tyler Wells and Dean Kramer. And you need those guys to be good enough. The first 2 guys, and then you'll deal with it once hopefully John Means gets into the equation, and maybe even still Kyle Bradish from there. Ultimately, look, the Orioles won. That's what matters. They're 3-1. That's pleasant. We'll see if they can continue the series tonight. I have no idea the confidence that I have in that happening. Today's show also brought to you by your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com, and County Sports Zone. CountySports.zone is where you go to find everything you need to know about local high school sports here in the spring season. Baseball, softball, boys and girls lacrosse, everything at CountySports.zone. Check it out there. It's proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. We normally do County Sports Zone Radio on Tuesdays. I think we're moving that to tomorrow for this week only. Instead, we'll continue to talk about the Orioles. Our next guest here on GCR was in town for what was an eventful opening day. She, of course, is a national baseball writer for the Washington Post. It's always a pleasure to welcome back into the program Chelsea Janes, who's with us now here on GCR. Chelsea, it's Glenn in Baltimore. It's great to chat with you. Thank you for taking the time for us this morning.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I feel like in an assignment to write a story about Orioles opening day, you probably could have written like 6 different stories about everything that was going on Thursday, Chelsea.
There was just a lot happening, a lot sort of coming together, and things ending, things beginning. It was an eventful day, and I think that the David Rubenstein era will be that way, from what I can tell.
It's the funny thing because I said in the last 24 hours, the one thing in all the interviews and the comments that he made, the one thing that he hasn't come out and directly said is, by the way, I intend to spend money, right? Like, it's the one thing. We're kind of all inferring that part of it. But short of that, it seems like he has hit every note correctly so far in a very short amount of time. And I do think there is reason for Orioles fans to be encouraged about the direction. And I think we all acknowledge part of that is the bar is not very high here.
Yes. I mean, I think one of the things that has been really consistent about him so far is how dogged he has been in trying to be out there and talking to people and doing interviews. And I think there are times where, people don't want to hear from owners, and that can wear on people. But in this case, I think it's absolutely necessary, very important, just because, the Angelos family was not super transparent. And frankly, I think David Rubenstein has a compelling message to send and really genuinely wants people to be happy with where the Orioles are. So, I think him getting out there like he has, it's kind of made him accountable for things a little bit. And yeah, he hasn't said he's going to spend, but he's been very careful in saying, whatever Mike Elias says, we're going to try to do. And at some point that's going to include spending some money, I think.
You would like to hope, or at least you'd like to think. Chelsea, I do feel like, again, it's a small thing, but just using the words World Series as frequently as he has, I know it doesn't guarantee that the Orioles are going to win a World Series, but in a way it's refreshing for this community because those weren't necessarily words that we had heard a whole heck of a lot over the last few years, but it does provide a measuring stick. Like, if in 5 years we're talking about it, it's not because we think that should be the goal. It's because you told us that was the goal.
Yeah, and not only have you not heard that around the Orioles, you don't hear many owners doing that anymore.
Yeah.
People are cautious. They don't want to back themselves into saying, I'm going to spend. I think over and over you see guys dancing around it or saying, it's hard to win or whatever. And, he's not. And I think he'll temper that eventually if it gets hard to win and he's, taking heat, but he just doesn't seem afraid. And I think that is refreshing, not only for Orioles ownership, but just in general at a time when it seems like owners are, crying poor and talking about what they can't do. He just seemed very eager to make a conscious effort to say, no, like, this is what I want this franchise to be. This is a meaningful place. And I care about it being important to the community.
Yeah, and to the point that you made about the community, right? Like, in the feeling, everything that the city had been through last week, it also felt like that understanding the role we play in this community and that we want to play in this community. And that would be one area where I would give, the John Angelos in particular maybe more credit than other people would. I do think he wanted to do that. He just, made some errors in that process.
Yes. Yes.
But you felt all of that, obviously, on Thursday. Like, the role that a baseball team, even more uniquely than anyone else within a community, can play for the city and being in touch with what's going on and being present and being there on almost every day. I think you felt that immediately on day one in the aftermath of the Key Bridge tragedy.
Absolutely. I mean, his first press conference was almost a joint press conference with Wes Moore talking about the bridge, and he didn't seem bothered at all that there were questions coming in that were about something that was more important and had nothing to do with him. It's weird to say, but I think there are some owners who would not like that or not set that up that way or not allow that to happen. And, he kind of stepped off the stage and let reporters ask about when, they'll have more information about what went wrong in that. So it was, that was kind of telling to me too. I think he's just excited, and like that is really important. And I think it rubs off on people. I think it really brings people to a team when they feel like every single person involved is as excited and cares as much as they do. It's rarer than you'd like to see. And I think also, who feels it is players and managers and people like that. So it's contagious. And so far, I think he's done a great job of communicating his excitement, and that only brings people in.
Chelsea Janes from the Washington Post is with us here on GCR. Chelsea, beyond the ownership group, I've still struggled to fully try to explain what it is that I felt on Thursday. Corbin Burnes obviously was dominant and was brilliant, right, in his first start with the Orioles. But it also goes beyond that. It goes to it's been decades, literal decades since the Orioles had a true ace of a staff. And watching the way the crowd interacted with Corbin Burnes and how invested the fans were in, like, every pitch he was throwing. Of course, like in D.C., right? Like, this has happened with Max Scherzer and Steven Strasburg, and we all remember Strasburg's first start and, like, grown men hugging each other that night in the crowd. I have not seen something like that in Baltimore in a very, very long time in relation to a pitcher. And to me, it was just because of that one of the more special individual performances I've ever seen at Camden Yards.
Yeah, it's franchise altering, I think. And I think it's also encouraging because he's just a perfect fit in a lot of ways. You could have gotten a lot of people who could have put together a debut like that, but he's consistent. He just is a really good fit, I think, for what they need. And he'll do that again. It's not like he just kind of rose to the moment. That's someone you're going to watch every 5 days and be excited about. But yeah, and it's also so interesting because it was such a clear need. You know, it's definitely possible, and Greta thought Grayson Rodriguez looked great, that he becomes number one. It's, you know, Kyle Bradish had a great year. If he comes back, you're in great shape. But that guy has been there and he's captivating. And I think that, you know, you feel a lot better with Corbin Burnes in game one of the postseason than almost anyone in baseball. So it's just, you know, you felt like they needed it and then they got it. And it was like, okay, we're you know, everything with them has been so on schedule. And I think he has arrived right on time. And, you know, you just feel it. It just fits.
Chelsea, I think there's a part to it. From a baseball standpoint, it's everything. But you can speak to this from all the various teams you've covered, but obviously we bring up like some of the great that they had in D.C., what it does for a city on the day that guy is pitching. And the way there's like an electricity, and unfortunately the weather's bad this week, so I don't know if we're going to get to feel it tomorrow or not, but like the electricity that exists within a city when you have that type of pitcher on the mound for a baseball game, it's almost impossible to describe to people that don't, again, here in Baltimore, that don't know what it's like because we haven't seen it since it's Mike Messina.
Right. Yeah, no, you like look forward to it.
Yeah.
You come just to see it. It's an occasion every time. And you know, Scherzer was like that. There were times where you had to watch because you thought he might throw a no-hitter, and Corbin Burnes striking out 11, you know, you're going to have to watch to see if he strikes out 15 one day. You know, it's you have to pay attention. And you know, I think we all also know that like it's really enjoyable when there's good starting pitching because the game moves and everyone just kind of it flows. So yeah, it's a thing, and you know, one of the things that a lot of people have been talking about this year is how many true aces are left. It's just not a position that's easy to fill anymore, and he is one, and they have him now, and not a lot of teams can really say that. So not only is it sort of special for them after all these years of not having it, but you know, it's a rare thing to find right now.
Chelsea, as constructed, right? Like with no other additions, is this roster good? No other external additions, right? So I'll leave Jackson Holiday in play in this. Is this roster good enough to win the World Series right now with nothing else?
I would say no, only because I don't trust Craig Kimbrell.
Oh, I get it.
I think the bullpen needs a little bit more and more guys that have been there, but I don't see a better position player lineup in baseball. I don't think they've gotten their full due yet because unless you've watched them every day for the last 2 years, these are still quote unquote unproven guys. But I mean, there's no deeper lineup farm system position player wise. And pitching, you know, they're not bad either. If Bradish comes back, if Means is okay, you know, that rotation might be enough. But the bullpen just hasn't proven it yet. So, but this team is, you know, there's going to be one concern, I think, every year for the next 6 years. And you're going to worry, can they fix it at the trade deadline? Can they find it internally? And that's sort of the fun of contending every year, right? Is like, yeah, maybe it's not the perfect roster, but you know you're going to be there. And that's where they are, which I think is sort of all you can assure yourself this early in the year.
I think that's very fair, and I think that there is every opportunity to continue to be aggressive when it comes, but I completely agree with you about the bullpen. Utterly, completely. And it's not just because Craig Kimbrell blew a save last night. I mean, that was kind of fluky. I have the exact same concerns. And I also think that, like, we lose sight of just how truly historic it was what Felix Bautista did a year ago. Like, I mean, this is one of the great strikeout ratios we've ever seen in baseball history. That the standard was so insanely high that even someone who's pretty good, there's a margin that has to be made up between those things.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. He was the best reliever in baseball and will be, I'm sure, when he gets back. And, you know, Cano's good, but they've got people in the system who could come up and, like, one of the things that is so promising about them is I think there are a lot of organizations that you kind of know what you have depth-wise, and you're not going to get surprised by a minor league guy. They could bring somebody up who figures it out and turns into, you know, one of the best setup men in the division. And, you know, they just have that ability to kind of make people better. And I think, you know, whether internally or externally, there's tons of time for them to figure out what they need in the bullpen. But, yeah, I mean, they're just, you know, and Bautista coming back next year, it's like they're really well set up to kind of make minor tweaks and keep making a run at this. And it's just, I think 29 other teams would love their problems.
Chelsea Janes, where are you headed? What's on the docket for you? What are we going to be reading about in the Washington Post?
I think a lot of Orioles and some Nats. The Nats are home for the next few days, so we'll be there too. But maybe some Jackson Holiday coverage coming up in the next few weeks. I won't be alone in that, I'm sure. But yeah, we'll be there.
Boy, it'd be nice if it was Jackson Holiday coverage in Baltimore, but that's a conversation for another day.
Yep.
At Chelsea_Janes is how you follow her. Chelsea, really appreciate you spending the time with us today. Thanks so much for doing this. Let's talk again soon, all right?
Definitely. Thanks for having me.
Chelsea Janes, Washington Post, with us here on GCR. Some sad news this morning. I didn't know anything about it. In fact, it's funny, we were just talking about him last week in hopes that maybe this new regime would recognize him with a rightful place in the Orioles Hall of Fame. Larry Lucchino has passed away at the age of 78. Larry Lucchino was absolutely vital in the creation of Camden Yards. I mean, vital. Was served as team president of the Orioles from 88 to 93 and oversaw, along with Janet Marie Smith, really the reasons why Camden Yards exist. And, it was a short time here in Baltimore, of course, went on to become president of the Padres, and then later, what was it? Was he president of the Red Sox? I think he was president of the Red Sox, too. And oversaw the tenure in which they finally ended the World Series drought. Larry Lucchino, an extraordinarily influential man in the game of baseball and an extraordinarily influential man for the Baltimore Orioles, and particularly when it comes to Oriole Park at Camden Yards. He also was was credited with being heavily responsible for the modern ballpark that they built in San Diego to replace the Murph as well, Petco Park, which is one of the other more popular stadiums in baseball. So, safe home, Larry Lucchino. Very sad news this morning, and someone who had a significant influence in the Orioles and Camden Yards, and who Stan is absolutely 1,000% correct, deserves to be recognized in the team's Hall of Fame. And it felt like there were some petty personal issues that prevented that from happening. And hopefully now, moving forward, with new ownership in place, that will be something that will be corrected. It's sad that it won't happen while Larry Lucchino was here. We'll come back in. Still a lot to do this morning here on Glenn Clark Radio.
Craving that classic New York deli experience? Look no further than the new Atman's Deli in Baltimore's Harbor Point. Corned beef piled high, hand-rolled bagels, and something different. A bar! Atman's has food and drink specials every day. Now open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Dine in, grab takeout, or hang out at the bar for the next O's game. Atman's Deli, an authentic taste of Baltimore tradition since 1915. Find us at Harbor Point or visit atmansdeli.com.
What company makes your home more energy efficient, purifies your air, kills all viruses, and qualifies you for $6,000 in rebates? A.J. Michaels Heating and Air Conditioning in Baltimore and Annapolis at ajmichaels.com.
Whether you're celebrating a special milestone, entertaining clients, or simply enjoying a night out, count on Ruth's Chris to deliver you the finest steaks, the best service, and a level of hospitality that has made Ruth's Chris one of the most revered names in steaks since 1965. Make your reservation now at ruthschris.com.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Discover one of Baltimore's hidden gems at Guilford Hall Brewery. Enjoy dinner in our spacious brew pub, sip a signature cocktail in our outdoor, dog-friendly beer garden, or take a tour of our brewery. Discover your new favorite local craft beer. From crisp lagers to hoppy ales, there's something for everyone to enjoy. Pair your brew with delicious appetizers and entrees. There are options for the whole family, but you have to try our fan-favorite giant pretzel. Guilford Hall Brewery, where every sip is a celebration. Visit us online at guilfordhall.com.
The latest edition of Pressbox is available now, and on the cover we look at the promise of spring for the Baltimore Orioles as Todd Karpovich and others shine the light on the team's hopes to take the next step towards championship contention and what reinforcements could still be coming. Plus, Pressbox personalities offer suggestions to David Rubenstein about stewarding the franchise. Also inside, Bo Smolka on how the Ravens defense could evolve with new coordinator Zach Orr. And we meet lacrosse players from the men's and women's programs across the state. Pressbox is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores. And you can always find the entire edition as well as the best daily coverage of the O's, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
Contrary to what some people believe, I actually like this guy when he sleeps. Glenn Clark, talking sports.
Yeah, a reminder, by the way, back in here on GCR, you just heard that the lovely ad for Ruth's Chris. A reminder, we are giving away a $200 Ruth's Chris gift card. You're seeing, you see our Never Lose Ever sign behind me here in the studio, and there are some billboards around town, digital billboards, where you'll see me holding that sign and other silly things within that billboard. And if you happen to see that billboard, then I would encourage you, as long as you're not driving, to take a picture, and when you do, send it to me at Glenn Clark Radio on Twitter. Someone who does will win a $200 gift card to Ruth's Chris. So, we've had a couple people get in, got room. All you got to do is take a picture. Tweet it to me at Glenn Clark Radio, GLENNCLARK Radio, at Glenn Clark Radio. Send that pic. Oh, I'm tasting the soap. Oh, I could.
Is that what that was? I mean, I could hear it. How much of it did you
Like
consume?
a sip. Like a sip.
Okay, so.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think.
It's not good, man.
Well, but you didn't, as soon as it touched
I don't think
your
it's
lips,
moved that I'm worried that I'm, poised here.
Well, yeah, you're
yeah,
fine. So.
I think I'm okay.
But, as soon as it touched your lips, you weren't like.
I said it's exactly what I was. I said that's vile.
You finished it.
I swallowed it. Yes, I did. Despite it being vile, I did do that. But I don't want to talk about it. I just dealing with that.
You don't want to talk
dealing
about
with
it.
Okay. Tweet it. Take a picture and tweet it to me. That's what I want you to do. At Glenn Clark Radio of when you see our billboards all over town. Whew. If you missed it yesterday, Stan the Fan Charles, Ross Grimsley, Luke Jackson got together, talked some baseball. Facebook.com/PressBoxSports. Click on the videos tab. Go to YouTube.com/PressBoxOnline or PressBoxOnline.com/video as well. Real quick, not encouraging for the chances that there being baseball played. Maryland was scheduled to play a game today at UMBC, and that game has already been postponed. So, not encouraging. Although they postponed it to tomorrow, where, again, as we looked at the
it's 24 hours away.
It's true. A lot of things could change. They also switched, so I didn't realize
it might be like UMBC doesn't have as big a tarp or something.
Yeah, okay, so that part is true. So there was a home and home scheduled to be played between Maryland and UMBC baseball. At UMBC today, at Maryland next week. Apparently they're going to flip-flop the games, and they're going to play at Maryland tomorrow. But again, I don't – the radar does not make it seem like it's going to make much of a difference.
Yeah, so it seems like they should just play at Maryland today almost. If lightning is a concern tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't know, whatever.
Got the turf field.
I don't want to tell anybody how to do their jobs.
Yeah, right.
Not qualified. Not qualified. Not about this. Y'all do you. But yeah, they're going to try to play tomorrow at Maryland and then play next week at UMBC. And as we talked about before the season with Matt Swope, I do appreciate Maryland baseball coming to play games elsewhere in the state. It goes a long way to extending their brand and trying to be relevant throughout the area and give the opportunity for fans to come check them out. So they are now going to play at UMBC next week. The other big thing from last night, of course, beyond the Orioles game, was Iowa LSU. Had a couple people ask me yesterday, really? You're rooting for Angel over your cousin Caitlin? And I'm like, yeah.
did forget about that.
Cousin Caitlin hasn't made it out to the last few family gatherings, so.
I don't know. Her a little more as well.
Yeah, right. It's weird. I think we asked my cousin to come on the show before they played at Maryland this year, and she said no. The hell's the point of being cousins exactly? Great game. Great game. Obviously, the separation in the third quarter. The second half did not deliver the way the first half was some of the great theater we've ever seen. Though, what might the story have been if Angel Reese hadn't hurt her ankle? I don't know. I mean, Caitlin Clark didn't miss. Caitlin Clark was just bombing 30-foot threes. I don't know if it would have been much of a different story if Angel Reese hadn't turned her ankle. Although, in fairness, in the first half, Angel Reese didn't miss either. Not from three, but she wasn't missing at all. And then all of a sudden, the second half, after the ankle injury, she was not the same player. Although, what did she finish with, 22 rebounds, 21 rebounds?
Yeah, I think she had 20 rebounds.
Something like that.
She
definitely
had
17
and 20, I think.
She showed up. Haley Van Lith
should have had more because she got fouled out and bad foul.
That was a terrible foul. But the game, it was
probably
over.
Probably wasn't going to matter.
It was over. It was a 10-point game with 2 minutes left. It was going to take a miracle. Haley Van Lith, tough night. Now, why they continued to leave her one-on-one with Caitlin Clark, I'm not sure. I mean, I heard Kim Mulkey say something afterwards we knew that Caitlin was going to get hers. The problem for us was that, Martin had 21 and 8 rebounds. And I guess I get that, right? I feel like that's there's the eternal debate when it comes to facing a good player. Do you just let them go off and try to shut off everybody else? Except, hey, we're not stopping this player, so let's make sure. Or do you do whatever we do, she's not the one that beats us?
Right.
Right?
It was when Brad Underwood said, if he gets 100 blocks, he gets 100 blocks, about Donovan Clingan. And then he did. So.
Yeah, basically, yes. I don't know what the correct answer is. The way that she talked about it afterwards, it seemed like their strategy was, we accept that Caitlin Clark's going to get hers. We need to make sure we shut down everybody else. And they didn't do that, for what it's worth. Yes, the story was Caitlin Clark, 40 points. It's crazy. What a performance. I mean, it was brilliant. But the secondary story was, if she scores 40, but as a team they score 74, no big deal. She scored 40, and as a team they got damn near 100. So there is a relevant point to be made there if that was what the strategy was coming in. At some point, I probably wouldn't have left Haley Van Lith alone. And yes, the meme of Haley Van Lith shrugging, what you want me to do? What am I supposed to be doing here? Was humorous, obviously. Great game. It was a great night of basketball. I watched UConn USC afterwards, and Paige Beckers was phenomenal. It's a bummer for Angel Reese, and a lot has been made about her post-game comments. She got very emotional talking about look, it has been utter BS. I mean, it's been utter nonsense. Complete nonsense, the way that a portion of this country has treated Angel Reese because she had the audacity to show flair and be demonstrative on a basketball floor. There's no getting around this. There's no both sidesing this. It's been a joke the way that Angel Reese has been treated. And doing the thing where you're like, well, she brings it on herself. Nah, Chief. This ain't it. Whatever you think you're saying, you're not. I'll say the same thing, too. The number of pea-brain people on Twitter last night that heard Angel Reese talk about how she has been sexualized and said, well, you pose in a bikini. I mean, this is the, this is blaming the victim in a rape. This is, well, you shouldn't have worn that. Get the entire F out of here. And I'm not saying that Angel Reese has been raped. I want to make that abundantly clear. No. You're so small-brained. You're so incapable of thought that you have no ability to understand that Angel Reese has autonomy for her own actions. She gets to do whatever she wants to do. You don't get the right then to treat her like garbage because of what she does. We have this problem where we think that provides some sort of shelter for our behavior. Well, we're allowed to then treat someone like an object if they take a picture where they're not covering every inch of their skin. No. And your lack of understanding about that is a reflection only on you. Only. There's no gray area there. The rest of us, I'll tell you that as a young person, I didn't get it. Now, I came, obviously from a different time where there were a lot of things that I hadn't been fully taught. But the moment someone explained that to me, I said, oh, right. Yeah. They have autonomy. We don't. That doesn't give us the right to objectify. I understand now. But it's deeply embarrassing how many people don't. How many people truly believe that they're the worst of themselves is given shelter by this person, took it. Sydney Sweeney's talked about this recently, right? Like, the number of times somebody wants to be like, well, Sydney Sweeney's, showed her breasts. No, she's an actor. That's what she is. Her acting does not give you shelter to objectify a person. And if we don't get that, we're kind of hopeless. You have no right to objectify anyone. That's the way it works. Now, if I guess there are places that people are on OnlyFans and they want you, I don't know. I mean, like, that's a different world. If it's, again, if there's autonomy and if someone consents to that, then that's a different conversation. But Angel Reese is well within her rights to point out how awful people have treated her because, again, she chose to be a model. Make that abundantly clear. You're embarrassing. The coverage of Angel Reese v. Caitlin Clark has been good for basketball. Has obviously been very good for women's basketball. It has brought an extraordinary amount of eyeballs to the game. But Angel Reese, who has been a guest many times on this show, and I've always found to be extraordinarily pleasant, and I like a great deal, despite the fact that she left Maryland. I'm still not fully over it. The way that she has been portrayed as some sort of villain, because, again, how dare she have the audacity to have a personality on a basketball floor? How dare she? Has been bull-ass. Has played to the lowest common denominators. And for a bunch of different reasons. Some of it is low-hanging fruit. For some people, it's pure racism. That's what it is. You can try to pretend like that doesn't exist because it hurts your feelings. But for some people, that's it. For other people, it might not be pure racism, but it might be nothing more than, and I mean this, we don't have the ability to talk. We don't know enough about the sport, so we need to talk about something else. It's what people are talking about. I talked about this in the aftermath of the national championship game last year. Everybody in the country was watching the national championship game. And a number of people wanted to get attention out of it. Engagement farming. And in their engagement farming, they realized they needed to talk about the national championship game. But they don't know anything about women's basketball. So what they decided to glom onto was the low-hanging fruit. Well, if we say this person's a bad person, we'll get attention out of that. it's all gross. It's all been gross. Happy for Caitlin Clark. Like, she did need that. As great as accomplished as she is, if she loses to LSU again, that stays with her. That's part of her story, not defining. She's still one of the greatest players of all time. By the way, again, for newcomers, it's not definitive that Caitlin Clark is the greatest player of all time. She's in the conversation. But good for her. Because it would have stayed with her and would have been part of her story. And I mean, until she won like 4 WNBA championships, and then I think that part of the story probably goes away then. And she, I still don't know that she's going to win the national championship. I mean, South Carolina's probably going to win the national championship. But we thought that last year, right? And it didn't happen. So it's not a guarantee, but I would assume that South Carolina is still at least a notable favorite. It's good that it will create more demand viewing this weekend. I like that in any sport, right? Like, I like the thing where everybody's got to watch and everybody's going to be talking about it, and there are so few things that bring all of us together. There's so few things that everyone is participating in national discourse. And everyone, I'm being hyperbolic, right? It's not everyone. It's just such a large group of people that you get to a point where you genuinely feel left out if you're not watching, if you're not paying attention. I don't watch golf, but again, if Tiger Woods somehow is involved, I don't even know if he's playing. If he's involved in the Masters, I'm going to tune in and I'm going to watch because everybody else is going to be watching, and I'm going to want to be part of the conversation. Everyone's going to be watching Friday night. And if it's Iowa, South Carolina on Sunday, everybody's going to be watching. And I like that. We have so little of that. There's so few things that everyone's invested in, everybody's in tune with, that I appreciate when there are more. And there will be more this weekend. I would say even more so than Saturday. Although we want you to join us in the FanDuel, or near the FanDuel Sportsbook, at Sports and Social, inside Live Casino and Hotel on Saturday for the national semifinals. We'll be there, hanging out, watching the games, trying to help you win some money. Great food specials, great drink specials, lots of great giveaways. Come join us Saturday for the national semifinals at Sports and Social, inside Live Casino and Hotel. It's on TBS this year.
It is on TBS.
I don't know that. I mean, I'd like to know what the ratings will. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to say that I think the women's games will have better ratings than the men's games will. If it was on CBS, that would almost be impossible for that to be the case. On TBS,
why
maybe
is it on TBS?
That was part of the deal. When Turner came on, they got like, I don't know. I think it's every other maybe Final Four national. The championship game will also be on TBS on Monday. I mean, like, by the way,
it doesn't really affect. Yeah, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't affect
anything,
the majority of people. Like, in any way, there's still a very small amount of people that only have access to network TV or whatever. But and people talk about like how can we take you seriously when the championship's only on? I'm like, well, the college football playoff is on ESPN. It's not on ABC. Like, this is. In 3 years, none of these networks are going to exist in the next 10 years. So, like,
it's just going to be, pick the game you want to watch.
Correct. I don't feel like we should be all that worked up about it. I feel like we should sort of be adjusting to it at some point soon. But yeah, a hell of a night of basketball. Bummed for Juju Watkins. I'm a big Juju Watkins fan. I really love her. And also, there's still a part of me that, like, UConn's kind of the evil empire. You know what I mean? Like, I get that they're not the same as they've been in recent years. I understand that they are not as dominant and they don't win every championship the way they have in the past, but it's still UConn that we're talking about. On the women's side, anyway. On the men's side, actually, they're going to get close to that conversation as well. But there is
Yeah, and my entire UConn has been the team in my entire lifetime, because they won their first championship in '99.
Right.
So they've had 5 since then. Yeah, that's.
Yeah,
it's
staggering. But they haven't. They've been largely spaced out, right?
Yeah.
Well,
that's what almost makes it.
And they've had big dips in between, right? Kevin Ollie won a national championship as an 8 seed, if I remember correctly, and then there was a big dip, right? And so we just don't think of UConn the same way because they haven't been shoved down our throats in the same way. Part of that is because they've been up and down. Part of that is, I don't know, maybe because they're not on ESPN anymore. They're in the Big East, and the Big East is on Fox. I don't know. But they haven't been shoved down our throats the same way. The UConn women were shoved down our throats, for a long time. So I kind of created a bit of an evil empire feeling towards them. So I couldn't help it. I was rooting for USC last night, and I was bummed by that. But Paige Beckers is awesome, man. I think I saw Shamika Holtzclaw say something like, not for nothing and with no disrespect, Paige Beckers might be the best all-around player in college basketball because she is, as a defender, she is hell. So that should be fun this week. All right, into hour number 2 of the program, and it is always a thrill to catch up with our next guest. And I've had the pleasure of introducing him many times for conversations, but I've never had the pleasure of using the title co-owner of the Orioles when I introduced him before. He is, of course, the Hall of Famer. He is the great Cal Ripken, and he is back with us now here on GCR. Cal, it's Glenn. It's always good to catch up. Thank you for taking the time, and congratulations, sir.
Yeah. Hi, Glenn. It does feel pretty good to be part of this ownership group. I'm pretty sure that I wrote a little bit smaller check than David and Michael.
Hey, look, it all counts, right? It all matters. Cal, take me back. You're a young man. You're growing up in Aberdeen. Baseball's in your blood. What would have been more unbelievable to you if I had told you that one day you were going to be in the Hall of Fame as a baseball player, or if I had told you that one day you were going to be one of the owners of the Baltimore Orioles?
Well, I don't know if I'd believed any of it.
Yeah.
Way back when you have a dream. I think this whole process made me become a little philosophical. I had a dream for the first 20 years to be a baseball player, and then I lived that dream for 21 years with the Orioles, my hometown team. And then I became an owner for a minor league team, and I learned a little bit about business. And I think so many things in life are a matter of timing. And this ownership group came around. The timing seemed to be perfect for it. And I didn't think I'd be as emotional about it as I feel I am. And because it wasn't something that you set out to do. You're going to be one of the owners of the Orioles, but I feel formally a part of the Orioles. I've always had a connection, but it feels really good. I'm watching every pitch. I went to the first 3 games. I missed last night, and that was pretty exciting. But there's a renewed enthusiasm in my life.
Cal, I feel like, when we would talk over the years about the possibility of you being more involved, one of the things that would come up in conversation is that sometimes legendary players don't want to take on roles like that with the team because they have to end at some point. Was this really the only way you could have seen yourself being formally involved? This doesn't have to end at any point, right? That this just makes more sense than having ever been back, say, in the front office or as a manager.
Yeah, I mean, this way I get to be a sounding board to Mike Elias. I mean, great news is that the baseball's in great shape with the Orioles, thanks to Mike and company. And so I can be a sounding board, and I can utilize some of my baseball knowledge and my baseball expertise to help in some way. But it feels really good not to have a job per se. I think probably some time ago, when I was a little bit younger, I might have looked forward to getting into the day-to-day in some other ways, but I think things work out sometimes for the best, and I didn't know, I had offers to interview for managing jobs elsewhere, and I never could see myself outside the Orioles uniform, to be honest with you, and but it just feels good. I'm at a time in my life. I'll be 64 this year, and I've had some success in the business world, and that's translated well. And I'm kind of looking forward to being a little more retired. But it's good to come back to the game and be a part of it in an ownership fashion. So I guess you can't get fired from being an owner. I guess not.
Cal Ripken with us here on GCR. Cal, is it is consultant almost the right way to describe it when you say being a sounding board that,
Yeah, I think I view it, and I think David and Michael view it, is that I can be helpful in many ways.
Yeah.
And it is such a great thing to come in and own a team that the baseball piece is in such great shape. So you almost want to step back and say, okay, it's on you, and keep things going. So I don't feel at all like I'm the in charge of baseball. I feel that if Mike needs a thought or a sounding board, I can be that sounding board for him, and I could help in any way. So I look at it as more of a consulting type role.
Is it equally as important? One of the things that I thought immediately when we heard that you were involved was that, one, it's important to show that we want to make sure we have a connection, and that is it imperative for you that every former player feels welcome moving forward with the Baltimore Orioles?
Well, I mean, Eddie was at the reception, and Eddie was and Mike Elias said something funny in introducing me. I didn't know I was going to speak that night, but he introduced me, and he said the Orioles' greatest player of all time, and I got up and I said, "You forgot that Eddie was in the room."
Right.
So it gave me a little bit of a joking line, but I mean, the Orioles have such a rich history, and so I think maybe part of the role is to reconnect with that history.
Yeah.
With different players. I was happy to see Brooksy and Eddie. They've been with the club for a few years now, and sort of a baseball ambassador role. And so I thought that was really cool. That was a good attempt. And I think Eddie went to spring training, and the number of players have been invited down to spring training. So I think we're on track to actually get back to, and connect to that rich history.
And then the other thing that jumped out at me is just the way that you understand this community, unlike almost anyone in the history of this region, right? And not to say that David doesn't, obviously, because he's from here, but that bridging the gap with maybe the rest of the ownership group. How important do you feel like that can be for you in your understanding and your knowledge of the community, and how much that can offer to this group?
Well, I've been here a long time, and experienced a lot of ups and a few downs, and I see myself first and foremost as an Oriole fan and someone that really loves the Orioles. I love them. I told many people I loved them. I think far back as about 5 years old, when I heard my dad speak to the entire minor league teams and first day of spring training, he said, "Welcome to the greatest organization in baseball." And the pride that my dad had to be a part of that organization, and the excellence that was in the minor leagues and the big leagues, it was easy to get pulled in. And so, I know the community. It's Baltimore is a wonderful city, but it's really a small town feel. A lot of people know it. I raised my kids there. We have deep roots there. It's good to be connected this way. And I was pretty amazed. David is his connections and his roots go way, way back, and he talked about that quite extensively. And he's maintained a connection. But I love the fact that Michael and David both see themselves as the stewards of the organization, as the team. Not necessarily strict owners, but they're the stewards. It's owned by the community and by Baltimore, and it's a responsibility for them, to handle it in the right way. So I love that philosophy.
Cal, I asked this question knowing you've already said, hey, look, I don't really have a formal role, so it's not like you have the power to make it happen. You can't go out and play or anything like that. But
no.
Is there something you mentioned that you were feeling kind of philosophical? Is there something that's maybe personal about wanting to have something to do with delivering championship baseball back to Baltimore after, a lengthy drought, a more than 4-decade drought at this point since winning a World Series. Is there something about that that's personal to you as you move into this role?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we all have the same goal of, restoring or bringing a World Series back to Baltimore. It happened for me really, really fast. My first year, I got things rolling, and things turned out well. Personally, went to the last 4 games of the season playing Milwaukee, and came up just a game short. And I think that motivated us for the next year, and we went on to win the World Series. And I kept thinking as a young player, I guess I'm 23 then. Yeah. After my first 2 years, you had the type of years that we had, and we won the World Series, that we'd get many more opportunities. And in some ways, because we didn't ever get back to the World Series in my time, I know what it feels like to win that one. And I want that feeling for these new guys. I want that feeling for the city of Baltimore again. They were a fun team to watch last year, and then winning 100 games, and then a little bit of the disappointment that they didn't push through. But I think that 5 or 6 day layoff really hurt them from the momentum standpoint. But I want that for the city, and I want that for the new ownership group. I want that for the players. Again, Mike Elias has created something special. I mean, it used to be called things like the Oriole way, when you had a culture and a chemistry the way they do, and you have the talent of these young players. It's just fun to watch, and I want them to feel that same feeling that I got a chance to feel once.
We're just another couple of minutes here with Cal Ripken on GCR. Cal, have you gotten a sense for, I guess, what have you learned so far about David and Michael and this team and how they do business? And do you have a sense for how truly committed they are? Like, can you already tell, like, oh, these guys are going to do whatever we need. These guys are going to do it because they're thinking the exact same thing you are about winning a World Series.
Well, I think we're all I've known David for a while. I had a chance to be around him and with him maybe 15 years or more. Just got a chance to meet Michael. They're waiting in. I could tell you that anything you want to know from David, just ask him.
Really?
He's one of the most transparent and good people. And sometimes he'll speak to subjects that I wasn't sure that he would go to. But he's that way. He's just open. He's transparent. He's good. And so Michael is from the same type of person. So I mean, I've enjoyed being around them, and so you can't say are they going to open up their checkbooks and make sure that everybody comes in. I think they're going to continue looking to the guidance of Michael, and decisions are going to have to be made down the road. But they're just getting used to being owners right now, and I guess I'll leave that up to them to actually comment on that.
Do you find yourself? Does this extend, the being a sounding board? Does this extend to players at this point? Like, do you find I know this is always a tricky thing, right? When the role isn't defined, but does it extend to the ability for guys to be able to seek you out and say, hey, we'd like to talk to you about some things?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I'm open to any of that. I mean, I respect all the coaches and Brandon and what they've accomplished, and sometimes you're doing things down there, and if you're not there on a day-to-day basis, it's you don't want to enter in anything that you have because it might contradict what somebody else is telling them. So
sure.
I've got a chance to know Gunnar a little bit better. I was around him a couple days before, and I just love how he plays, and I like to get into to see how he thinks about the game, and if there's something I can help in his personal game, I'd be glad to do it. But I'm sensitive to, everybody has a good role, and everything is going right now. So, sometimes you should tiptoe around and just let things happen.
Cal, I'd be remiss. This morning we got the sad news that Larry Lucchino had passed away, and obviously what a significant figure for the existence of Oriole Park at Camden Yards. I don't know, if you all were close. I don't know what it looks like for a player and a team president, right? But do you have any memories or any reflections on the passing of Larry Lucchino that we could share?
Yeah, I mean, I had a good relationship with him. Matter of fact, when Edward Bennett Williams was the owner, and then Edward Bennett Williams got sick, it was Larry that stepped in. And I remember when we were going through our tough times and losing, the business side of the Orioles kept getting stronger. Like, it seemed like the more games we lost, the more people we drew.
Yeah.
and he was a business mind. He was a pretty accomplished athlete himself. Played basketball at Princeton, and so it was fun. And he really cared, and he was passionate about what he did. And he had success going to San Diego, and then had success going to Boston. I mean, everywhere he's gone, he's done really, really well. So I enjoyed talking to him. Smart, a great sports fan, and but I think the contribution he turned. I think what he did here was the Baltimore, Washington area. He made it. What was the expression? "Come to Birdland" was the marketing slogan for a while, and included the D.C. Baltimore area. We came up and played games in RFK, and we went down there and made appearances down in D.C. And so we became more of a regional draw. And I think that was all from Larry Lucchino. So his contributions are tremendous.
Cal, is there any chance that we're so used to seeing you sit in your seats, any chance that you actually wander into the owner's box at some point?
Well, it started raining the other night, and my wife looked at me and she said, "I think we should go up to the suite." so we went up there, and I like being really down on the field when you're watching the game, because it feels like you're an extension of the dugout.
Yeah.
You're really close. You can see the pitches much clearer. You can see the reactions. I like that. But there's an advantage to sitting up in the box where you get to see the whole field. Balls go in the gap. You can see plays develop a little bit better, almost like the aerial view in a football game. And so I enjoy both. But I would imagine when the weather is too rainy or too cold, I think my wife will nudge me, and we'll go up to the box.
Right. You can let Ryan have those seats that night then. Like, hey, bud, you can come down, sit here. We're going to take the spot in the box. That makes a lot of sense.
Ryan's doing well, and he knows the game really well.
Yep.
And
we love him. He's great.
I've enjoyed watching him and listening to him.
Cal, we're so happy for you, and to hear you be honest about how emotional it is, I think is very meaningful for all of us as well. That this is perfect, and we're so glad that it's worked out. We can't wait to see what's next. We always appreciate you taking the time for us. Thanks for joining us this morning.
It's my pleasure. All right, thank you.
That's the great Cal Ripken with us here on GCR. And as he points out, right, like there's no defined role with Cal Ripken. There's nothing that we're going to be able to measure and say it just makes all of the sense in the world. It's just such an easy, no-brainer decision to make. Involve Cal Ripken. And this is with I don't mean this to be a reflection on anything that's happened in the past. It's just about how simple this seems like it should be today. Involve Cal Ripken. He's Cal Ripken. Have him be a presence. Involve him in conversations with people you're trying to do business with. I know, as a guy who's watched people that are in conversations with Cal Ripken where you're trying to do business, it's very beneficial. Extraordinarily. Hard to do better when it comes to a closer. We're trying to get a deal done with somebody. Well, have you brought in Cal Ripken yet? What a thought. Involve Cal Ripken. And at the lowest level, it's what I talked about with like J.J. Hardy being back and Matt Wieters being involved. It just makes us feel good. That's it. I know you can't measure that. There's not a dollar amount that you can give to that. You can't say here's the value of Joe in Reisterstown seeing J.J. Hardy is going to be a spring training instructor. You can't measure that in any way. There's no, well, here's the amount of tickets that we sold because of that. Or here's the... And so when you do a bottom line, you can't... But what it means to Orioles fans to just know that the people that we love are a part of it, are trying to help, are offering input, anything like that. It's a warm, fuzzy dollar value. And I get it. That sounds very low level. I think the cow's value goes beyond that, just the lower level. But it starts with that. It starts with the lowest level. It starts with as simplistic as that. This fan base wants to see it. It's like comforting. The king is in his castle. I know how silly that sounds. But it's God save the king. It's we want to look up and see the king sitting in his throne. There is a feeling that we have when we watch the baseball games. Every time you turn on an Orioles game and Cal Ripken is sitting behind home plate, the immediate thing you do is, hey, look, there's Cal Ripken. We want to see the king in his throne. We want him to be involved. I have no doubt he'll be able to help more specifically as he paints. He doesn't have like a title. He's just part of an ownership group. So is Grant Hill, for what it's worth. I'm not opposed to Grant Hill being a part of the ownership group. That's totally fine. But it doesn't mean what it means that Cal Ripken is involved with the ownership group. And, yeah, the part that would be fascinating. I respect what he said. Look, I don't want to get anybody. It's all working right now. That's the other part, too, and I've appreciated that about this ownership group. They have deferred to Mike Elias, and the baseball part of this is working. I don't want to get in the way. I don't want to mess with that. That was one of the things I wanted to hear from this ownership group. And that's a fine line for Cal Ripken, right? Like, who I have no doubt would be able to offer incredible thought and would be of tremendous benefit to a Gunnar Henderson, a Jackson Holliday, a Jordan Westburg. But I appreciate what he's saying. Look, they've got coaches. They've got Brandon Hyde. They're getting instruction, and it's working. I don't want to put another cook in the kitchen. It's very thoughtful. This is such a no-brainer. I'm grateful that this group, that David and Michael Arrighetti and that team see the value of this and understand how important it is, and look forward to there being more Cal Ripken around the Baltimore Orioles. That's a good thing. Look forward to more wins too. I mean, that's the part that really matters, I guess. But man, it's so simple. All right, rolling along on a Tuesday edition of GCR. Today's program is also brought to you by Ruth's Chris. I told you we're giving away a $200 gift card. Man, there's no better place to be. Whether you're celebrating a milestone, just trying to entertain some clients, or you just want a nice night out, maybe a date night, for example, there's nowhere better to be than Ruth's Chris. Count on them to deliver to you the finest steaks, the best service, and level of hospitality that has made Ruth's Chris one of the most revered names in steaks since 1965. Make your reservations right now at ruthschris.com. Still to come this morning, we will preview the Final Four, talk a little lacrosse, and some Maryland basketball as well with our buddy Patrick Stevens. That's on the way. It's Glenn Clark Radio.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Hungry? With 7 locations throughout Maryland, Glory Days Grill is always right around the corner. They have wings, burgers, salads, sandwiches, and drinks to satisfy everyone, as well as tons of televisions and sound delivered right to your phone. Glory Days is the best place to watch football or whatever your favorite sport is. While you're there, be sure to check out Goose Flights Lager, named in honor of legendary Raven Tony Goose Siragusa. $2 of every can is donated to the Goose Flights Foundation. Glory Days Grill. Great food, good sports.
What company makes your home more energy efficient, purifies your air, kills all viruses, and qualifies you for $6,000 in rebates? A.J. Michaels Heating and Air Conditioning in Baltimore and Annapolis at ajmichaels.com.
Oh, honey, we better stop for gas soon. Let's pull into that Royal Farms.
Ugh, gas is so expensive.
Nope, it'll be cheaper than you think.
Why's that?
I signed up for Rofo Pay on the Royal Farms app. Now we save 15 cents per gallon at all Royal Farms.
Wow, that'll save us a ton of money. I love you more every day.
Well, then, don't get a speeding ticket this trip, okay?
Sign up for Rofo Rewards and upgrade to Rofo Pay and save 15 cents a gallon on gas for a limited time. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines, so you can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Jeremy Kahn here. The ultimate sports betting experience in Maryland is at the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbook. Join me at either location in Canton or in Towson and place your bets in person and be a part of the action. It's the best in-class sports wagering experience, complete with the ultimate TV package, ensuring you can catch every game all day, every day. Their state-of-the-art facilities bring Las Vegas energy right here to Maryland just in time for postseason football. So visit the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbook in Canton and Towson and elevate your game day experience and hang out with me to bet, watch, and win at the Turtle.
What company has the expertise to make your home healthier by purifying your air and killing all viruses, allergens, and bacteria? A.J. Michaels, Heating and Air Conditioning in Baltimore and Annapolis, ajmichaels.com.
Coming back in here with Glenn and the other guy, Garrett, whatever his name is. You know who they are.
All right, back in here on GCR as we continue along on a Tuesday edition of the program. Thanks again to Cal Ripken Jr. for spending the time with us. Don't forget, Goose Flight's Lager is available all over town. $1.98 from every can sold goes to benefit the Goose Flights Foundation and the work that's being done to provide non-emergency medical transport for those in need and continue the legacy of the great Tony Siragusa. So go pick up a can, find out more about where they are at pressboxonline.com/gooseflights. Our buddy John in Little Rock chimed in this morning. With all due respect to Angel, I can't root for LSU for anything. Oh, but that's a great point. John's an Arkansas guy now. So, yeah, that's a different conversation. And reminds us that, yes, Clark also talks big-time trash and bravado as well. Yeah, look, man, the way that people treated Angel Reese, it deeply embarrassing. Deeply embarrassing. Randy Morgan isn't happy that Chelsea Janes said that the Orioles, as constructed, aren't capable of winning the World Series. If this O's team isn't capable of it, then who is? Just L.A., Atlanta, and Houston. They have the 5th best odds on DraftKings. It's just a silly analysis. Randy, I disagree. I don't think it's silly. I have no problem at all with I don't think this bullpen as constructed is good enough to win the World Series. If the answer is, if the answer back is, well, maybe it's not going to end up being about the bullpen, maybe, but I have no problem deferring to, I think uniquely that can be preventative to your ability to win a World Series, and I don't have a similar lack of faith in other bullpens. It doesn't guarantee anything. It's an opinion. I have no issue with that. I would tell you probably I hold the same opinion. I think we get lost in words sometimes. I think the gist of what I'm saying, is it impossible that the Orioles can win the World Series this year with this bullpen? Not at all. It would require this bullpen coming together in a way that we don't have confidence about right now. And again, could some of that be that and Tyler Wells becomes a serious part of the answer? I mean, yeah, that could change something, and that would be internal, so that would count. But at the moment, I would tell you that I would probably be closer to Chelsea in that if you ask me right now, if the Orioles have a good chance of winning a World Series, I would tell you not until I see something out of the bullpen that gives me more confidence or external help can be found in order to close the gap when it comes to the bullpen. So I disagree. I disagree that it's silly analysis. I think it's very fair at the moment. I just think that it's the wording of it. Like, it sounds like it reads maybe, or it sounds like it's utterly and completely impossible. I think it's more like it's not a particularly good chance of it playing out without bolstering the bullpen, and I think that's very fair. I'm going to save this one. I'll save because we're about to chat with Patrick Saban. So, John and the other John, I'll get to yours. But it's remind me, Griffin, remind me there was one other thing I wanted to address, one other comment that I wanted to address. In the meantime, it's Tuesday, and on Tuesdays, we like to go visit through the world of college sports with our friend, Mr. Discourse at D1S Course on Twitter. You know him from the Washington Post, USA Lacrosse Magazine, among others. He is Patrick Stevens, and he's back with us this morning here on GCR. Patrick, good morning, my friend. How are you?
I'm well. How are you doing?
I am all right. Got a lot of hoops to talk about before we get to that. That felt like a pretty seismic second half for Maryland up at Penn State on Sunday night. Like that, I don't know that it can be understated the significance of that for that team.
Yeah, that was, I thought, a season-altering 30 minutes for them. And I agree with you. I don't think there is a way to undersell that just because of when if they lose that game and they're 5-4, and yeah, they still got a victory over Syracuse, but their margin of error is a lot lower the rest of the way. You basically have to beat Rutgers and Ohio State at home in the next couple weeks. And that Hopkins game at the end of the regular season has some meaning, and you're probably stuck in all likelihood, not guaranteed at that point, but in all likelihood, you're probably stuck playing on that opening weekend of the Big Ten tournament. Yeah. Well, now you come back, you come back from down. What was it? It was 4. It was at 5 at one point in the first half, 4 at halftime, down 3 going into the fourth quarter with just a completely out of nowhere blitz for a team that frankly has not been the most dynamic offensive bunch all season. For them to go out and score 5 goals in the first 4 minutes or so of the fourth quarter, take over that game, win 13-11. Now you've got to win at Penn State to go with the win at Syracuse. You have Ohio State and Rutgers coming in, which are winnable games. They're not guarantees, particularly not this week against Ohio State in the first game since the famous glove game of last year out in Columbus. And then you've got that Hopkins game that could very well be, the Big Ten title at stake at that point for you if you happen to win these next 2 games. So, things definitely look a lot different for Maryland. You go from sitting there wondering, does this team have a path into the NCAA tournament without much wiggle room, to you can definitely see them being at home right now. And if they finish strong, they could be a top 4 or 5 seed in the tournament. So the perspective on this team definitely flipped in that hour or so from halftime onto the Final Horn up in State College.
Is it too far to say that if they can channel how they played in that second half, they're still a threat to make a run, to Memorial Day?
Well, I think first off, one of the keys to that second half was that they won face-off,
right,
which is what they normally do, and they didn't do it really as much in the first half. They were 6 of 14 in the first half, 11 of 14 in the second half, and that makes a difference.
Sure does.
I thought they were opportunistic. They score off the face-off early in the fourth quarter. They get the goal where the ball's just kind of squirting around, and suddenly it just ends up in the right guy's stick at the right time. They get, I thought that the last goal that they scored was truly a classic John Tillman era goal, where they got 2 shot clock resets, kept Penn State on the field, had the ball for about 2 minutes, and score with a second left on the shot clock. And I guess John Tillman era is probably not the right phrase. It's more like shot clock era. But still, that's the sort of goal that Maryland has used to just break the backs of opponents here for a while. Not necessarily in the title season of 22, but in most other years, that's sort of been their thing. That kind of just wear people out, wear them down. And so I think there's a lot to like there. And can they bottle it up? I don't know. I don't know that they can do this on a consistent basis.
Sure.
But now that you've seen it for a half, basically, and really even you think back, like defensively, like Penn State got to 8 goals was at the 13:04 mark of the second quarter. So they just went out and held Penn State to 3 goals in 43 minutes. That's really impressive. And some of that's a matter of possession, but some of that's a matter of their defense doing some really good work out there too. And it wasn't even a matter of Penn State getting a lot of good looks in that stretch. Penn State had 5 shots on goal in the second half.
It was very impressive. It was extraordinarily impressive, the performance they put together. Just to stay on the lacrosse topic for a second, how do we make sense of Navy, Patrick? Like, what are they?
They are a team that's not the same from game to game, from half to half, and quarter to quarter, and that's kind of what you take away from them. They're not going to be an at-large team in the tournament because they already have a couple losses that are sort of head scratching there. Maybe not super head scratching. I mean, the Towson loss. What's more glaring is how it happened, not that it happened.
Right.
And the Lehigh loss, but they certainly have ability, and they certainly have some individual pieces that stand out, and they've kind of figured out a way that works for them at this point. And I suspect that if we talk about Loyola a little bit, we can go into the same subject there. But they found a way that kind of sort of works, and they hung in there the other day against Colgate. And now you're sitting there. If you're Navy, you're 3-1. You still have a couple pretty manageable games left in the league, and then you also have Army and Loyola. And so everything that they would want is still sitting there for them. They can still beat Army. They can still win a Patriot League regular season. They can still host the conference tournament. They can still make the NCAA tournament. The question is can they actually stitch everything together in a single game? And even when they've picked off Hopkins, for example, that was still a team that was down 6-1 in that game. They were down big early against Colgate. The old coach's mantra, the cliche of, play 60 minutes. We definitely have not seen that from Navy so far, but they've certainly pieced together enough that makes you think that a complete game from them would make them a really, really, really spicy opponent for somebody if they made the NCAA tournament.
You bring up Loyola. We saw each other at Ridley on Friday night. I'm still not sure, they've won a couple of games. I'm still not sure that they're playing particularly well, but I do kind of look at the schedule and say, if they can keep stringing this together going into those Navy and Army games at the end of the season, there is something about a confident Charlie Toomey team late in the season that has a chance to be dangerous again.
Yeah, and I think that you look at the next 2 weeks, those are games that Loyola should win against Bucknell and Holy Cross. And I would agree with you. I don't think that Loyola played particularly well, but that game can almost be boiled down to 2 things. One, Loyola was -12 in faceoffs, which has been a recurring problem, and they were +11 in turnovers, which more than made up for it. And I think that for Loyola, there seems to be this sort of acceptance that they are going to be opportunistic at times, but they're not going to be this super fun, always up and down team that people kind of think of them as or think that they should be, just because possessions are at such a premium for them. So I think for sure you can see them getting themselves to 6-6 with those last 2 games against Navy on the road and then against Army on a Friday night to close the regular season. For them, everything they really want is in front of them as well. They're not going to be an at-large team to the NCAA tournament. But can they put themselves in a position where they finish second? Well, with those 2 games still left, absolutely. Like if they win out, they're almost certainly, I think, trying to do the math pretty quickly here, but I think they would be in line to basically be a 2 seed probably at worst at that point.
Yeah.
There might be a tiebreaker or something along those lines, but you get kind of the point I'm saying. Like they'd probably be a 2 seed if they won out, 1 or 2 seed. And so you put themselves in a spot where you only have to play 2 games that week. There's certainly a lot to be said for a team that does have some interesting pieces on the offensive end. I mean, I'm not sure they've entirely figured out who those 7th, 8th, and 9th best pieces are, and there seems to be a lot of trial and error.
Yep.
It feels like, just kind of watching them, trying to figure out, well, who's that going to be today? But there's enough there that makes them a team that's worth paying attention to here over the next couple weeks.
And it's not that I'm trying to dismiss. I know Hopkins got another good win this week, but we got other topics to cover, so we'll move on from lacrosse. Patrick Stevens with us here on GCR. Patrick, before we get to the Final Four, we talked a little bit last week about Rodney Rice. Maryland adds in another transfer in Jacoby Gillespie this past week, but maybe even more significant news, they're going to get back Juju Reese. However, they're going to lose Jamie Kaiser Jr. What do you make of the makeup at the moment now with all of the pieces that are continuing to fall together?
Well, if the trade you're going to get is you get to keep Julian Reese and Jamie Kaiser leaves, I think that's a good trade for Maryland, certainly in the short term.
Yeah.
I think Kaiser was a guy that everybody thought was going to be a good shooter, and he shot 26.5% from 3. So, I think there's certainly something to be said for, it's unrealistic to expect guys to be finished products as freshmen. And so you do kind of wonder what is he going to turn into? I mean, he could end up being one of those guys that gets consistently better, or that's what he turns out to be. And you're not going to know that until you get to the end of the line. Now, as for Gillespie, who I thought was the most interesting development, even more interesting than Julian Reese sticking around for another year, a guy that shot almost 39% from 3. Check a box, right? Like, that's one of the single most important things they could have. So this is a guy that averaged 17 points in the Missouri Valley, which, isn't quite what Jameer Young was doing in Conference USA, but you can kind of see that might be kind of the pattern that somebody's trying to follow. So an important addition, but far from finished. And I do think that even while adjusting for a step up in competition, that if you're sitting there saying you're trading out Jamie Kaiser for Jacoby Gillespie, that's probably going to be a net plus, at least for next season for Maryland.
All right, so the Final Four is set, and are we at the point we now have to wonder why NC State wasn't more consistent earlier in the year? Like, this is, I know we talked about it last week, and I know it's just so crazy to me that they're this good. And we're never able to sort of, even more than flirt with it during the course of the regular season.
Yeah, they had a little stretch there around New Year's where it seemed like, well, this is sort of interesting. But part of that was a function of them beating a few teams that we probably thought were better at the time than they turned out to be. Like, they beat St. Louis in that stretch, and they beat Virginia at home by 16 in that stretch. So there was a little bit of that. But I agree with you that you do have to kind of wonder why it took this long for all the pieces to fit together. Now, some of it is you're bringing in all these dudes, and they're new, and you don't necessarily know how they're all going to fit together. And I continue to point out that this was a team that it really wasn't dominant in any way whatsoever. Trailed at halftime of its first game in the ACC tournament against a terrible Louisville team. And so, the other thing to think about is they wound up clinching their, ACC tournament title 3 or 4 days after the first team they beat in that tournament fired their coach. So, this is the sort of weird things that you're having come up here for them. Like, they have, they just beat Duke twice in a month for the first time since February of 1988. I do think that one of the things that was really, really important for them, really 2 things. One was that Mohamed Diarra reemerged, I should say, as such a significant factor for them, even if he didn't play as much the other day. He wasn't as much of a factor against Duke as he had been for pretty much the last, half dozen or so games for them. But him doing that freed up DJ Burnes to be essentially a point center. And then you throw in Michael O'Connell, who hit the bank shot against Virginia that kind of kept things going. a guy that had not been as pronounced a figure for them up until really February, but even more so really until the ACC tournament run. That basically gave them two primary ball handlers on the floor at the same time that were stable pieces, like Burnes as a sort of a guy that serves as the nexus of the offense. It doesn't wear him out as much as kind of moving around, right? And then O'Connell obviously gave them a stable piece outside. It basically took all that time for Kevin Keatts to kind of fall on, well, this is the best formula that works for us. And you can certainly ask why he didn't figure that out by, say, February.
Right.
But ultimately, that's kind of what's happened, is that those two guys, three guys really, Burnes, DR, and O'Connell, ended up in more pronounced roles than they had been, doing things that maybe were a little bit more than what they had been asked to do. And for both DR and O'Connell, their first year in the program. So it kind of happens that way sometimes. It doesn't happen like this sometimes. This is kind of a unicorn. But overall, yeah, I think that there's reasons for it that are relatively easy to explain if you're willing just to dig into it, basically.
I feel like we default to, this is a great story, but, they can't beat Purdue. Like, this is Purdue. I don't know I don't even know how to talk about it at this point, Patrick. Like, this is the Final Four, and I know there have been blowouts in the Final Four. Like, I'm very uncomfortable with suggesting that any team I think that UConn is the best team left. I think that Purdue is fairly close, but I'm uncomfortable suggesting that at this point any of these teams couldn't win.
I think one thing that's worth pointing out about NC State, too, beyond just the ramble that I offered you, is that they have played much better defense over the last 3 weeks than they had previously. And so I can absolutely see them hanging in with Purdue. I mean, I don't think they're going to beat Purdue by 15 or anything like that. But I think that can be a really competitive game. I also think that if Connecticut plays the way it's been playing,
it doesn't
nobody's going to touch them. Okay? Yeah. They play with a precision and a purpose and intent that you only see, I don't know, once every 4 or 5 years from a team. Like, there is a different level of that. And having watched it up close once this season, in person, courtside, you notice those sorts of different details, that every cut is precise. Everything is done with a purpose. And it stands out in a way that, you might have a possession where a guy accidentally steps on the sideline or accidentally, has an illegal screen. And not that those guys don't do that, but it doesn't happen nearly as much. And everything is so methodical with UConn. And they're obviously really talented too, which is a big part of the equation. It's going to take somebody playing extremely well to be able to knock them off. And I don't know that Alabama, which I give Alabama credit, I didn't think they had the defense to be able to get to this point. And by the way, the record for most points in an NCAA semifinal is 108. And that's in danger, I think. Like, that UConn-Alabama game has like 110-95 written all over it. So something to keep in mind. And then, NC State and Purdue, NC State is on an absolute heater. I get it. And Purdue, obviously, we would love to see, I think any basketball fan would love to see the Edey versus Klingon matchup in the middle. But I don't know that anybody in the country is ultimately going to be able to put together the sort of game necessary to beat UConn, especially when you think about just how they are demolishing people at this point. I mean, it's amazing to think that Northwestern, who was never in that game, has given them the best game out of anybody so far in this tournament.
I don't want to sound like I'm Reese Davis. I don't want to make it seem like I'm saying it's a risk-free investment, but I would point out that the total for Alabama-UConn is 160.5 for anyone that's interested in that type of information after what Patrick Stevens just said. All right, Patrick, can we play our game? Let's do this. What teams did this player play for and or manage? And I realize I've been doing a little bit too much modern recently, so let's go back a ways for all three of these today. Let's start someone who is a World Series winner as a manager, but a lot of it that predates 1980. 4 teams for Whitey Herzog.
All right. Well, Whitey Herzog was definitely with St. Louis and Kansas City.
That is the bulk. There were 2 single-year stints in 73 and 74.
73 and 74 single-year stints.
Yes.
Wow.
I will acknowledge I was not aware of either one of them.
Okay. Was he with the Angels in there?
In 74, he was with the Angels.
And in 73, so Whitey Herzog's first managerial stop.
Correct.
Was a single year in 73.
And I don't.
And it's a full season.
Nope. He was fired on September 7th.
Okay. How about Texas?
That is correct. That is. I don't. Did you get that based on September 7th, or did?
No.
Okay, all right.
I was kind of.
If you had known that based on that, I was gonna lose my mind. All right, this man, a 3-time All-Star, once led the American League in ERA and led all of baseball in strikeouts. 6 teams, that is, for Frank Tanana.
Frank Tanana gives us the California Angels.
Most certainly.
The Texas Rangers.
Yes.
He was in Detroit.
So you've knocked out the overwhelming majority. These are all, at best, single-year stops now.
The Yankees and the Mets both.
That's correct.
And Boston.
That's 6 for 6 on Frank Tanana. And we wrap today. Our 4 team is Buddy Bell.
Buddy Bell, Texas for sure.
Yep. Twice. In fact, he went back to Texas in 89.
Yeah. Cincinnati, right?
From 85 to 88.
Cleveland for him?
Cleveland for 72 to 78.
72 to 78. So we have Buddy Bell at the start of his career?
No, actually it was it looks like he was traded from Cincinnati to this team in 88.
88. Was he in Houston at the end there?
My God. Oh, just a casual 14 of 14 today for Patrick Stevens. Well done, sir. What's the schedule look like for you this week, my friends?
Penn State and Hopkins on Saturday, so we'll have plenty to talk about with the Blue Jays one way or the other when we convene next year.
Sounds good, my friend. At Discourse, D1S Course on Twitter. That's how you follow him. Patrick Stevens, always appreciate you. Thanks for doing this. We'll talk next Tuesday, all right?
Awesome, Glenn. Take care.
It's Patrick Stevens. He's with us every Tuesday here on GCR. I always think, like, maybe this will be a tough week for him. And then he goes 14 of 14 on that group of players.
Does he have access to your notes, I guess? Or
I've never – in fact, sometimes when Patrick and I are just watching a game together, there's some names that I've looked up, but, like, they never made – our rules originally for this game were they had to play for at least 4 teams. They had to play at least 5 seasons past 1980, and they had to make at least 1 All-Star game. But if you saw the list of, like, random people that never made an All-Star – that made an All-Star game at some point – I mean, like, guys I've never heard. I don't know. It was my life on the line. If you said, name anything about Gary Ward, I guess my family would miss me.
He played baseball?
I think he did.
But that could be, yeah, I know, you could be just stumping me.
Gary Ward was a 2-time All-Star, in fact. I've never heard of the man. He's not even, like, the most random player on this list, and it would do nothing for me. So there's a number. Pat Zachry. Zachry was a pitcher from 76 to 85, made the All-Star game in 78, was part of a World Series winning Reds team in 76. I'm like, I can't give that to him. I've never heard of this person. I've never heard of them. There's no way Patrick. And then, like, we'll sit at a game somewhere, and he'll be like, all right, give me some of the ones that are they're a little bit tougher. And I'll give him, like, a Pat Zachry, and he'll be like, oh, yeah, I can name 3 of the teams. What is that? All right, so the other John, drew my attention to something that our friend Jeff Ehrman tweeted out last night. Jeff Ehrman from Inside MD Sports tweeted out the following. What percentage of the massive new interest in women's basketball will remain after Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese are gone? I don't ask mockingly. I've enjoyed it. But they desperately need another megastar in the pipeline to maintain momentum. And I think some people are reacting in a very bombastic way towards this tweet. I don't think it's an absurd premise. I think it's a flawed premise. I disagree with Jeff. Yes, I think that Caitlin Clark's stardom and Angel Reese and her personality with her stardom have gone a long way into bringing many casual people to women's basketball. Will some of them disappear? Perhaps. But, like, maybe the most significant moment in men's college basketball history was Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. And those people didn't just go away when Larry Bird and Magic Johnson were gone. They didn't just disappear. Because the truth was there were stars before Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, and there are going to be stars afterwards. I think that's the problem with the premise. Like, the notion that there won't be stars, there are always stars. This just happened to be the moment where a star transcended. It is worth pointing out that while, yes, we all see that, for example, when Caitlin Clark came to Maryland this year, tickets were being scalped for hundreds of dollars. But it's also worth pointing out that it has transcended past Caitlin Clark. That the attendance for the first weekend of the women's tournament this year was astronomically record-setting. Not just in Iowa City. Everywhere. That matters. That states that we're already seeing that it's not unique to just Caitlin Clark or even LSU. It's broader than that. It's making the tent larger, and more people are seeing the product and realizing how good it is. And one of the things that we've all pointed out in recent years is there are a lot more four-year players. The thing that, we're hyperbolically suggesting, like, Drew will be like, I think it's going to ruin college basketball. Like, no, Chief, it's not going to ruin it. But it's different, and I don't disagree with the fact that it's so rare that you can find a men's college basketball player and support them and follow them for years with your own team is disappointing in comparison. It was easier, it was whatever you want to call it, for college basketball fans, the men's game, to meet a player when they were a freshman and know they were going to be there for 4 years, 3 to 4 years. Fall in love with them, buy a jersey, all that type of stuff. Well, there's a lot more of that in the women's game, and that is appealing. I don't know if Juju Watkins is going to play 4 years of college basketball. She might. And if she does, she's going to be transcendent. She's that good. And she's now going to be seen all over the country because she's going to be playing in the Big Ten next year. So Caitlin Clark won't be coming to College Park, but I don't know if the schedule's out yet. At some point in the next 2 years, Juju Watkins will. I don't know if it's next year because I don't know if they've announced the basketball schedule yet for the first year of the Big Ten. But if she's at USC for the next 2 years, she's going to make a trip to College Park. And you know what? I think there's going to be a big crowd to come see it. Now, Maryland's unique. Maryland has always drawn well. Do they draw 15,000? No, not typically, but spoiler alert, neither do the men. Some games draw that big of a crowd. If the Maryland women are a top 5 team next year throughout the course of the year, they'll draw massive crowds for whoever they're playing. And when the Maryland men are really good, obviously they draw really good crowds too. But when they're not, did you notice what the crowds look like this season? I understand the gist of what he's asking. I don't think I agree with the premise. I think the question of who's the next star player I think Juju Watkins is the obvious answer. But the notion that, like, a bunch of these people are just going to go away because Caitlin Clark, maybe some of them will. There might not be, for example, as much interest in Iowa basketball next year in particular. But we've already seen the ripple effects and the transcendent way it's gotten people to notice other women's basketball teams and other women's basketball games. And there will always be a star player because there always were star players. Whether it was Maya Moore or Diana Taurasi or Sue Bird or Candace Parker or Shamika Holdsclaw, who I referenced before, or insert name Cheryl Swoop, Cynthia Cooper, Cheryl Miller. They've always existed, just didn't exist under the same spotlight that's now being provided. And with this spotlight now shining, the opportunity for Juju Watkins is going to be the center of this conversation. And in that way, it's a real bummer that she's not playing in the Final Four. To remind everyone, hey, this is what you're going to be watching for the next couple of years. But you're going to be watching her for the next couple of years. She's special. She's going to be a star if she stays at the college level. It'll be interesting to see if at some point, there will be, decisions that will be made by some players. I get it. The argument of the salary in the WNBA versus the ability to make NIL money does make it seem like it's more and more likely. But, for example, Caitlin Clark could have played another year of college, and she's choosing not to. Now, some of that I think she's graduating, and so, what's the point of just kind of, if I'm graduating and I've got the opportunity to go get a job, what am I doing here, really? So I don't blame her for that. We'll get a break. We'll come back in, get a tidbit and two, but to wrap things up, today's show brought to you by the print issue of Press Box, which is still available for just a couple of more weeks. Make sure you get it before it's gone. Diving into the 2024 Orioles, the promise of spring there with a group of Orioles on the cover. Go get it for free at your neighborhood Royal Farms, any of the hundreds of locations around town where you find Press Box. Read it all at PressBoxOnline.com. It's Glenn Clark Radio.
Hey, it's Jeremy Kahn. This postseason, bet in person at the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbooks with locations in Canton and in Towson, and enjoy the best in-class sports wagering experience at their state-of-the-art facilities, bringing an unmatched sports betting thrill.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Discover one of Baltimore's hidden gems at Guilford Hall Brewery. Enjoy dinner in our spacious brew pub, sip a signature cocktail in our outdoor, dog-friendly beer garden, or take a tour of our brewery. Discover your new favorite local craft beer. From crisp lagers to hoppy ales, there's something for everyone to enjoy. Pair your brew with delicious appetizers and entrees. There are options for the whole family, but you have to try our fan-favorite giant pretzel. Guilford Hall Brewery, where every sip is a celebration. Visit us online at guilfordhall.com.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
Oh, honey, we better stop for gas soon. Let's pull into that Royal Farms.
Ugh, gas is so expensive.
Nope, it'll be cheaper than you think.
Why's that?
I signed up for Rofo Pay on the Royal Farms app. Now we save 15 cents per gallon at all Royal Farms.
Wow, that'll save us a ton of money. I love you more every day.
Well, then, don't get a speeding ticket this trip, okay?
Sign up for Rofo Rewards and upgrade to Rofo Pay and save 15 cents a gallon on gas for a limited time. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Craving that classic New York deli experience? Look no further than the new Atman's Deli in Baltimore's Harbor Point. Corned beef piled high, hand-rolled bagels, and something different. A bar! Atman's has food and drink specials every day. Now open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Dine in, grab takeout, or hang out at the bar for the next O's game. Atman's Deli, an authentic taste of Baltimore tradition since 1915. Find us at Harbor Point or visit atmansdeli.com.
What company has the expertise to make your home healthier by purifying your air and killing all viruses, allergens, and bacteria? A.J. Michaels, Heating and Air Conditioning in Baltimore and Annapolis. AJMichaels.com.
Hungry? With 7 locations throughout Maryland, Glory Days Grill is always right around the corner. They have wings, burgers, salads, sandwiches, and drinks to satisfy everyone, as well as tons of televisions and sound delivered right to your phone. Glory Days is the best place to watch football or whatever your favorite sport is. While you're there, be sure to check out Goose Flights Lager, named in honor of legendary Raven Tony Goose Siragusa. $2 of every can is donated to the Goose Flights Foundation. Glory Days Grill. Great food, good sports.
One of the things that's definitely wrong with this country is that this dude still has a job somehow, some way. Glenn Clark.
All right, back in here as we're winding down on a Tuesday edition of the program. Did I hear that Drew can't make it in tomorrow?
That is
God, that's just such a shame.
Unfortunate case. Yeah.
Man. And we're still going to, do the show?
I mean,
even without him?
Believe it or not, I do have some guests scheduled, too, yeah.
So. Well, that part... That is the surprising part of the conversation. It seemed to work that way recently. There'll be one day where everything's scheduled, and then the rest of the week will be like, "Hey, what are we doing today?" I don't know. Can you book something? And then on one day, everything falls into place. Griffin's like, "I've got a month's worth of guests all lined up for today's show." I'm like, "Oh, neat." Yeah, it's a real shame that he won't be able to join us tomorrow. Gee, gosh, golly, what a bummer. I noticed that he was scheduled to be back on the radio this weekend.
He's not, I believe.
Yeah. I got some questions about.
Yeah.
Got some questions about that whole situation. Speaking of the radio, Rita and I will be on tonight. Apparently from 6:30 to 9 this evening. Or maybe from 6 to 9.
Yeah, maybe.
If the game gets rained out. I'm still very confused about all the rules for this.
I think
it would be hard pressed to be there in time for 6. I don't think that will be an option for your boy. I got a lacrosse game today. I was comfortable when the schedule showed us starting at 7, so I was like, I got all the time in the world. In fact, I was planning on making a detour on the way back. Then all of a sudden it was it's actually 6:30. I'm like, oh. All right, well, I'm good. I know how long the high school lacrosse games go. They don't go, beyond 2 hours unless, of course, today. Now all of a sudden I'm gonna see a lightning strike. God is just gonna. I'll be fine. I'll be there by 6:30. And then I got the old hot text this morning, hey, not for nothing, but if the game gets rained out, hey, your show at 6. I'm like, the thing about that is, maybe not mine, maybe the show. But not your pal. Yeah, Rita and I are on tonight from 6:30. And then it's this is the other part too, is it's never fun to be on up against an Orioles game. So there's a part of me that's
right.
It's wouldn't be the end of the world if the game got rained out. Wouldn't be the end of the world. Or maybe a nice rain delay that lasts until after 9 o'clock. That's what I'll really root for, because then I can go home and watch the game. I would actually, that to me is the best scenario for how this could go today. Is a nice rain. Not great for everybody going to the game, but for Glenn, it would be tremendous.
See what's changed over
if
the
we
last
could get
2 hours.
a 2-hour rain delay tonight, and the game starts right as I'm wrapping up the radio show this evening. So, as Rita likes to say, hey, Big Sandals, if you're listening, maybe throw your pal a bone if you don't mind.
What they need to do is just move the game up, because
you're saying this afternoon.
Yeah, it's clear until about.
It's
7 p.m.
It's funny because we'll see other sports do that. We never see baseball do that.
Right.
We never see baseball. It's somehow the sanctity, and part of it is.
Yeah, this is.
You can, do we see other major professional sports? I guess we don't see other major professional sports do that.
I mean, let's see.
I think we've seen in times where there was going to be
that Buffalo Steelers playoff game. I guess that's not a good example, but
that was moved back. I'm saying we see games move back. I feel like there might have been a Dolphins game one year where they knew a hurricane was going to be coming through, so they bumped it from Sunday to Saturday, if I remember correctly. Maybe I'm misremembering.
But yes,
that.
like college baseball does it all. Like
college baseball does it constantly because there's not as many moving parts. You don't have as big of a staff. You don't have as big of a. We just don't. It's just impossible. For some reason, it's okay to move it back, but you never move games up. I don't know what that's all about. Because it's also inconvenient to move it back too. You know what I mean? Like it's not great.
Yeah.
For the people, like if ultimately the way to play these games is to play a doubleheader tomorrow and the first game doesn't start until 4 and people whoever works at the stadium made plans, it's not ideal for them to have the games move back either. I don't know why that is, that we move games back but we don't move games forward. Smarter man than I can probably explain that. A couple things we haven't covered this morning. There was a no-hitter last night, first of the season. Ronald Blanco from the Astros throwing a no-hitter. And it wasn't even against the Athletics, so I think it counts, right? It was against a real team. The Blue Jays are definitively a real team.
Makes you wonder how good the Yankees must be this year.
Yeah, right? They didn't face Blanco, though, so maybe if they had faced Blanco, that would have been different.
That's true, I guess.
And then J.K. Dobbins apparently meeting with the Kansas City Chiefs.
World Tour continues.
Might be a little bit difficult if the Ravens were to lose in the playoffs to a team with Hollywood Brown and J.K. Dobbins. That would be that'd be a tough feel. So how about they don't do that? There's my insight.
Yeah, maybe they just beat them.
Yeah, that's my insight that I have to offer is just don't lose. What a thought. Let's get a tidbit. Anything else that we didn't cover today that we needed to cover? I think we covered everything.
Yeah,
I think we're good.
J.K. Dobbins was the big one.
That was the big one, really? Tidbit is brought to you today by it's brought to you by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com, proud sponsors of County Sports Zone, countysports.zone, where you can find all the latest scores and schedules and play pick'em for high school boys and girls lacrosse, as well as baseball and softball. It's all available at countysports.zone, proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com.
UConn women are into the Final Four now, so that makes it now the
first time ever
that
two schools have both their men's and women's teams in the Final Four.
Correct. And then it is also now the 12th time ever that both the men's and women's team of a school have been in the Final Four. So how many of those 12 can you name?
Well, it's not the first time it's happened with UConn.
It is not. How many times has UConn done it?
I don't know. 3?
More.
4?
More.
5?
5 times.
5 times. You
UConn
sound like Michael Cohen.
Yeah.
5 times. So it's 5 of the 11.
Yeah.
It's not 11 different schools.
5 of the 12. Yeah.
5 of the 12 were UConn.
The rest of it are each one.
Well, we learned Syracuse, right?
Syracuse, yes. So Syracuse was one of the 2 times it's happened where one of them was a double-digit seed into the Final Four.
I'll say Duke.
Duke has done it. What year?
Are you serious?
I mean, I just want
to
see, how much you know.
It was a Gail Gueston course coach Duke team, but I don't remember.
99.
What year it was.
99.
I thought was UConn. The women weren't in 99.
No, they were not.
Wow, that's wild.
It was the UConn was 04, 09, 11, 14, and now 24.
Say Baylor.
Baylor has not done this.
Okay.
It's a good guess.
Yeah, it is. I know. That's why I guessed it.
What about the other school this year?
The other school? Oh, right. Yeah, sure. Fine. NC State. I
NC
didn't know you were
State,
still. You're bad with this. Like normally we take them off the.
Okay. Well, I didn't want to get to the end and be like, oh, we named 11, and then I'm like, oh, well, NC State.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. Thank you.
All right. So we're at 7.
7. There's still 5 more I got to come up with. Oh, Christ.
I'll give it. All right. 83.
Hang on. Houston.
This was the first time it was ever done. Not Houston. It was Georgia.
Georgia, okay.
Georgia women and men in the Final Four.
All right. It predates Teresa Edwards, right? Or is that? All right, whatever. Keep going. Oh.
So 99 was Duke, and then
no, give me the year.
That,
I'll try to guess.
03.
03. No, that didn't help. North Carolina.
No.
Louisville.
No.
Kentucky.
No.
I'm trying to remember who's in the 03 Final Four. That was another UConn year, wasn't it? That they won the title?
No, I don't think they won it.
That wasn't UConn, Georgia Tech. Was that 04 then?
Yeah, I think that was.
So that would have been a Florida year then. No, Florida was after that. Florida was 6 and 7. 03 would have been 03 would have been Was 03 Syracuse, Kansas?
It was.
So who else was in the?
So it was not Syracuse or Kansas.
Marquette?
Not Marquette. You ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
Texas.
Texas.
Was that? Men and women in 03.
Damn. Okay.
Then in 05, it happened again. 2 more schools remaining, so it was 2005, 2017 that we had this.
2005. So 2005 would have been... Oh, God. 2005 would have been... That was a Carolina year, right? They won
yes, that was the year Carolina won it.
They played Illinois in the title game. Was it Illinois?
It was not Illinois. They did beat Illinois, but
piss.
It was not Illinois.
Well, then there's no chance I'm getting this. All right, let's just...
Michigan State.
Oh, Michigan State, okay.
2005.
Right.
And then
that probably would have been a reasonable guess. They've made a lot of men's Final Fours. Like 2017. 2017. So that was another Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
That was Carolina over Gonzaga.
Mm-hmm. Or was it Nova? No,
it was Gonzaga.
Yeah.
Because Villanova beat North Carolina.
Right, yeah. That was the year
before. Oregon and South Carolina. So it's one of them.
Yeah, which one?
South Carolina.
It was
South Carolina.
Yes, South Carolina men and women in 2017.
All right. Yikes.
Yeah.
Yikes.
All right.
Very
I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
I think we've done.
I know. All right. Well, so Renell Blancos no hitter. That was the 16th regular season no hitter that the Astros have thrown most no hitters in that span since 1962 when the Astros were incepted as a team.
Say that again. How many?
16 no hitters.
16. That's crazy.
Yeah, it is a
lot.
That's
nuts.
It's
always to the point where they don't care anymore, right?
They were also the 4th team to get their first win of the season on a no hitter.
I mean, there's stop.
1940, Cleveland got their first win of the season behind Bob Feller.
Yeah.
1972, the Cubs and Bert Hooton.
Bert Hooton.
Against the Phillies. And then in 2001, we may remember this one.
Oh, Hideo Nomo, right. Yep, yes. The Red Sox. Yep, I do.
Orioles.
I do remember that one. I did not go to that game, but it was a very last-minute decision. My buddy Barry was like, dude, let's go to the game tonight. Because that was when it was like the second game of the year. You could get in for $3. And we were seniors, and I was a senior in high school. I'm like, it's cold. I think I'll pass. And so I remember he went, and like, it's such a bizarre story. I just hung out in his basement
while he was at the game.
Like with a girl.
Nice.
Because he had a nice setup, and he was like, "Well, I'll be back." And it was a school night. I mean, like, I don't know whether our parents were involved, but I had a much better evening than Barry did.
You got to witness a no-hitter.
Much better. That part is true. I've never,
what?
That is a fair point. I have never been there to see a no-hitter. All right, Tubular is brought to you by Atman's Deli, Harbor Point. Love Atman's. The hand-rolled bagels. The delicious corned beef piled high. The soups. Outstanding. Oh, they're so good. All of it. At Atman's Deli. But this one, the new Atman's Deli in Harbor Point, has stepped the game up even further because they also have a full bar. AtmansDeli.com is the website. Find out more about their daily specials at Atman's Harbor Point. If the weather allows, the Orioles will continue their series against the Royals tonight, 6:30 or so, on Masson, Alec Marsh, Cole Irvin, the pitching matchup. Twins, Brewers at 4 on MLB Network. Reds, Phillies, 6:30. Giants, Dodgers at 10 on TBS. Monumental for Capital Sabres tonight at 7. And Monumental 2 for Bucks, Wizards at 7. TNT, Thunder, Sixers at 7:30, which is also on True TV, but Mavericks, Warriors is only on TNT at 10.
Right, so NBA is on True TV sometimes now?
Well, it's Brian Powell sent me, because we were talking about it last week. Apparently they are, like, acknowledging that True TV isn't a thing. And so they are.
Jokers is moving off of it.
Right. They're just going to make True TV like Turner Sports, I guess, moving forward. Or whatever, Warner Brothers Sports is what they're going to make it. I'm confused.
WBS, okay.
So, but, like, it'll still be True TV. I'm not really sure what the whole thing is. And it's also weirder because it's just simulcasts of sports. Like, it's not like they're moving it all to True TV. They'll still be on TNT and TBS. They'll just also be on... I
hope it works out.
I'm lost. I'm lost about this one,
Rooting
Chief.
for him, I think.
I guess. I don't care. The NIT semifinals tonight, 7 o'clock on ESPN, Utah, Indiana State, with your boy Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Steph Blurry. ESPN2, Georgia Seton Hall at 9:30. USA for Newcastle United and Everton at 2:30. WB NXT tonight at 8. Non-sports highlights.
Not a whole lot. It is, of course, the guess what's back? Lopez versus Lopez. Season 2.
Yes.
Premiere tonight on NBC.
Yes. Now, will I be okay if I did not watch season 1? Will I be able to? Will the storylines make sense to me?
You can take a chance.
Who died? Who died in season 1 of Lopez versus Lopez? Are both Lopez's still in the fight?
New episode of Shogun on FX.
Okay.
And then a big episode of Seth Meyers tonight because he's got Tim Robinson, Wendell Pierce, and Fred Armisen.
Oh, well, that's a lovely show.
Yeah, Tim Robinson's he's doing a I Think You Should Leave comedy tour.
Okay.
And of course, Wendell Pierce is in Elsbeth.
I have not watched Elsbeth, so
good news.
I love Wendell Pierce.
Season,
I love Wendell Pierce. Now, are any of them dead yet? Is Elsbeth still with us?
As far as I know, yes.
All right. You gotta stay on top of these things. Very good. Thanks today to everything else. GlennClarkRadio.com. Thanks today to Chelsea Janes, to Patrick Stevens, and to the great Cal Ripken Jr. We'll get it all up in the greatest hits section of the
Oh, my God, it's so good.
tab at GlennClarkRadio.com. On the program tomorrow, we're going to catch up with Mike Loxley, Maryland football coach. He is bringing his team to practice, a spring practice at Morgan State this weekend. So that's kind of a cool thing that they've never done before. We'll talk to Mike Loxley about that and the quarterback competition, and unfortunately man, it's so sad. Vontae Davis, what an awful story. What an awful, awful story that is. Also tomorrow on the program, we're going to talk some NFL draft tomorrow because Daniel Jeremiah will join us for one, but also Chris Braswell, pride of St. Francis, expected to be it's slated in as like early second round, but that could be late first round. That could be, I don't know if you know, the Ravens have a needed edge, and there's a Baltimore native that is a pretty good one.
Daniel Jeremiah will tell us.
Yeah, right. We'll see. Chris Braswell scheduled to join us tomorrow on the program as well. So all of that coming up tomorrow. Thanks to everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners, including Roost Chris, Live Casino and Hotel, Atman's Deli, A.J. Michaels, Guilford All Brewery, Royal Farms, Costas Inn, Glory Days Grill, your local Toyota dealer, and buyatoyota.com. Thanks to Griffin at Griffin_Bass. Follow us, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Glenn Clark Radio. Have a great Tuesday night. Go Birds if they play. Duke sucks.